Let's bring in our pal Ruben and Navarrette from Carlsbad, California. He's a syndicated columnist. You may have read his stuff. Very good, very astute. And not many people know this, but after I left Fox News 2017, Ruben Navarrette was our first guest that we ever had on the No Spin News. And he's back. You look a little older, Ruben, but I'm aging in dog years, so, that's just the way it goes. Where am I making my mistake?
Bill, so good to be with you again, my friend. I think the place you're making your mistake is I'm often mistaken for a Republican, not just because I appear on Bill O'Reilly's show, but because I believe in what Reagan said in the 1980s about taking responsibility for your actions. And I think that American employers, for instance, need to own up to the fact that we've become addicted to undocumented immigrant labor going on 30 years now, not just because we think it's cheaper than US labor, but because it's more reliable. These people show up, they don't flunk their drug tests. They actually don't sleep in. They show up on time and they work. And also the drug problem, as the president of Mexico correctly pointed out, we have an addiction problem. I have 3 kids who are teenagers, but since they were babies, I've had doctors prescribe pill after pill after pill after pill for them. So many of these, and you've done shows about this, many of these pill mills, many of this addiction that we've bred in this country to take a pill and make it feel better. When I see these stories about people ODing on fentanyl, for instance, Bill, I see stories that read like this. A basketball team was celebrating a big win. They were doing cocaine, and oh my goodness, it was laced with fentanyl. Well, your granddad was a cop. My dad was a cop, and I was grown up to not use cocaine, not use weed and drugs and pot. So I'm always mystified by how it is that when people use drugs they shouldn't be using that ends up being laced with fentanyl, we want to blame Mexico. I'll say this, just my last point. We don't have, in 35 years of covering this issue, we don't just have an issue with bad laws and bad borders. We have an issue with bad parenting, because as parents, we've not stepped up to the plate, put our kids to do these jobs that our immigrants are doing, and also tell them just don't do drugs.
Okay. I don't disagree with your points, but I think that they are a little bit naive. So point number 1, Congress absolutely has to make a new immigration law. They call it comprehensive. That's a bunch of bull. And the new immigration law has to give out more green cards, more working permits to migrants who want to work legally. That has to happen. Whether Donald Trump gets behind it or not, I don't know. But in conjunction with sealing off the chaos, that has to happen. That's number 1. Number 2, the United States of America is responsible for people using narcotics, yet nobody will deal with the problem because, it's a disease and you got to feel sorry for them, all of that kind of stuff. And you're not going to change that, Ruben. You're not. All right. If it were me, I would have involuntary. That means you would force the criminal drug addicts convicted of a crime. You either go to jail or you go to rehab for a year and a half, like they did in Singapore. And Singapore has no drug problem. And I did my thesis at Harvard on that. I went to Singapore and I saw with my own eyes that when you isolate the market, you take it away, there is no market. And particularly if you're punishing drug dealers. But right now we're in an emergency situation. You would agree with that, right? 14 million foreign nationals unattended in this country, 275 pounds of narcotics being seized. We're in a crisis situation. You got to stop the crisis, right?
I agree. We've got to stop the crisis. We also got to think about how we got here so we don't get into another crisis.
Well, I don't mind about that. That was Kamala Harris who's going to get to the root cause, okay? And she did a bang-up job there.
She didn't really do that. Yeah, she didn't really do that, exactly.
Very, very brilliant woman. But you got to stop the bleeding before you can go to the healing. And to stop the bleeding is, hey, look, President Scheinbaum, you're going to do what we tell you to do, or we're going to punish you. And we're going to punish you hard.
Yeah, that's not going to work, Bill. Here's why. No, here's why that's not going to work. If you quote break Mexico, if we go down to Mexico and pull a John Wayne and we're going to push ourselves around down there, the end result is you're going to have, again, as you said, a Mexican depression. What happens when the Mexican economy goes south? Many more Mexicans come up to the north.
No, they're not going to be able to come up.
Want to do?
Because they're going to seal it out. You can seal that border down.
No. We've had this conversation, my friend, for over 20 years. There's a difference between sealing the border and securing the border. I'm with you that you should secure the border. You're never going to seal a 2,000-mile border.
Coyotes you put the U.S. military on the border, you can, and you will, and Trump will do it. Okay, he'll say national security. He'll put the military right on that border.
You're going to have to put the military underground because there are tunnels that go underground.
Well, There'll be some that get through, but it'll be, and if you do it in conjunction with the people smugglers and you wipe out the cartels, as they did with ISIS, if you read Killing the Killers, I methodically went over how Obama and Trump did it step by step. And you could do the same thing with the, it's easier to do it with the cartels because everybody knows where they are. With ISIS and Al-Qaeda, it was hard to find them. Not hard to find the cartels. They're partying it up in Acapulco. All right, you can get them. They live in giant, lavish mansions that can be cinder in 15 minutes. So anyway, I am a very, very aggressive person on this issue. I don't believe that Mexico is looking out for America at all, Ruben. At all, in any way. They're not looking out for America. And unless they change, we got to punish them. Last word.
I agree with you. They're not looking out for America, looking out for Mexico, just as we look out for America. You're right. They need that $50 billion a year that Mexicans send up to the United States. It's clear they're out for themselves, but ultimately they do us a lot of good as well by providing intel, a trade that goes back and forth. Over 100,000 people come from San Diego into Mexico every day to go to work and back and forth. So this is not a divorce we can afford to have. We do have a friend and ally down there. And by the way, if you want to know what it's like to have a hostile power on your border, talk to Israel or Ukraine about that. We don't need it.
All right, Ruben. Always great to debate with you. You have a Merry Christmas. Really appreciate your time today.
My friend, thank you.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on X. Look for @Bill O'Reilly.